Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I am finally reviewing the 7th studio album from Carcass. It is Torn Arteries, which was released through Nuclear Blast on September 17th. Oh boy, you know what? Without further ado, let me just get in, just straight in to my thoughts on this album here, Torn Arteries. Let me just get into it because I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into it, folks. Okay, where do I really begin? You know what? I know where I'm going to begin with. Before really getting into any of my thoughts, you know what I have to do? I have to do basically a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what is the time length for this album. And since we have at least about 10 songs here, it all clocks in at the length of 49 minutes. Just basically 49 minutes, though technically I guess 48 minutes and 58 seconds. Technically on the CD, but it's pretty much 49 minutes. So it's fantastic. So these 10 songs are beginning with the title track, going into Dance of Ixtab. Yes, that's how it's pronounced. Which of course also titled Psycho Pomp and Circumstance March #1 in B. Then into Eleanor Rigor Mortis Under the Scalpel Blade, which is actually the first song to be released prior to this album, because this album actually, you know what, I'll get into more of that anyways. Then again, it was the first song released prior to this album. Then of course into The Devil Rides Out. Then into Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited, Kelly's Meat Emporium. Yes, I said that correctly, because I'm looking at the screen here. In God We Trust, Wake Up and Smell the Carcass / Kavit Emptor, and then finally into The Sky's Remorseless Swing. So there's your 10 songs. Very cool there. Again, since I kind of backtracked a little bit, on, I guess because I kind of stopped myself on, basically on getting into more about the song Under the Scalpel Blade, because it was the first song that was released prior to this album, because of what I was beginning to say, because I wanted to kind of leave it here anyways, is that this album had been recorded, since, let me kind of look at the information, because it had been recorded since, actually, from November 2018 to August 2019. So so since 2019, they had this album in the vaults, just kind of like with Iron Maiden's recent album Senjutsu. So they've kept this in the vault, just that at least a song from this album, or at least from these sessions, at least was released from this, because the last year they released an EP. Which again, Despicable, which actually had made it into one of my top, extreme metal releases of 2020. And the thing is, that entire EP was at least songs that was recorded during these sessions. It's just that the song Under the Scalpel Blade was the only song from that EP and those sessions that actually made it onto this album. So the rest of those 3 songs were definitely exclusive only to that EP, but they're all from the same session. So if you had remember seeing that review, at least that video where I kind of gave my overall thoughts on the entire EP, I definitely had some positive things to say about the EP, but I don't know if I can't remember saying if I really thought it was the greatest thing they had released. Upon further listening to this entire album, oh, you know what? I think if anything, they probably I think they pretty much kept at least one of the really good songs off that EP and basically saved a lot of the really good ones for this album, and probably had a reason for why they chose those, pretty much the rest of those 3 songs to basically just stay on that EP, because the material on this album, I think, at times are even better than anything that they had released on that EP. They really chose some really good stuff. My God, I mean, there is plenty of fast ripping songs, and it's definitely heard in at least the title track, Eleanor Rigor Mortis, and into, of course, Kelly's Meat Emporium. These are definitely the 3 of the most, basically, face rippers on the entire album. but in terms of most of the album, it all has a very cool groove going on, to where I really can make a lot of, at times, comparisons to, basically to Heartwork and Swan Song. I really can hear a lot of those two albums in this one, and I know that this follows 2013 Surgical Steel, which was their comeback album after pretty much splitting up, basically kind of after Swan Song, but they did eventually get back together, just that it took a long time for them to really release basically a follow-up to that album. And Surgical Steel was a good album, don't get me wrong, it was good, but something about this one just hits me hits me in all the right spots. Again, and I love, of course I know a lot of people really love the really early sort of grindcore, more extreme sounding albums from these guys. But to me, I think they really got really fucking solid with like Heartwork. And even at times, even I thought Swan Song wasn't too bad at all. It wasn't too shabby of a record. Again, it really showed that they can be more than just writing a bunch of just straight up extreme, in your face, no BS kind of songs. But again, beginning with an album like Heartwork, they again, a guitar player like Bill Steer really just started to really kind of really just kind of get into more really kind of expressing more of his overall musicianship. Everything just became so tighter where it definitely made it seem like that they were out to actually prove something. And that really began with an album like Heartwork, and they really kind of stretched that out and really expanded on that into an album like Swan Song. So, but with Surgical Steel, they kind of went back a little bit, but this one, I feel just everything kind of really tends to go more back to those first two albums. And that's definitely heard in plenty of the songs on here, like, for example, the aforementioned Under the Scalpel Blade, The Devil Rides Out, again, into like even In God We Trust and Wake Up and Smell the Carcass / Kevit Emptor, and then of course the Sky's Remorseless Swing. All of these sounds like they would have been not too out of place off an album like Swan Song or even Heartwork. They just have a very cool, catchy hook to them, and that's one thing about the album. It's got plenty of hooks to them. Again, it shows they still definitely can write still a lot of great sort of just straight up greasy fucking death metal tracks, but at the same time they're still backed by a very cool sort of melodic groove to them and hooks. Everything, it's all fucking catchy, and there's just really not a bad riff on any of these. Everything has its own distinctive rhythm to it, its own distinctive riff. Everything sounds unique from one another. They all have their own atmosphere. It's just great. And also, again, you really can hear a lot of the classic metal influences. And when and of course, when you got Bill Steer naming Killing Machine / Hellbent for Leather as probably one of his favorite Judas Priest albums, and basically also showing a lot of appreciation towards a song like Take on the World, he's not fucking wrong, because of the fucking groove that Take on the World had is definitely showed in the song Dance of Ixtab, Psychopomp, and Circumstance, March number 1 and B. It is heard in this song. You can really, in the beginning of this part, with that sort of straight, sort of really sort of groovy drum beat going on, that's very solid, very similar to at least to the rhythm in Take on the World from Judas Priest. It's definitely heard in this song. They really use that. And also, when he also says that Melissa from Merciful Fate, and also showing that, or at least really showing a lot of appreciation for a song like, again, like Satan's Fall, he's not wrong. Again, this sort of long, in terms of progressive, sort of metal kind of track, basically, he takes it that all those aspects and kind of really throws it into at least a song, Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited, because this song is the longest song on the album, and it basically clocks in at 9 minutes and 42 seconds. But there's definitely that Merciful Fate influence definitely in this track, because again, just the overall concept that at least Merciful Fate had, and really crafting the really long, almost progressive sort of numbers where the tempos changes at times, where everything still has a very heaviness and darkness at times to them. It's definitely heard in this particular song, and He's really able to take a lot of his favorite aspects from his favorite sort of metal bands and really just, again, even Carcass in general, taking all their influences, but really just blending up in a blender and just really just throwing it into at least into the meat grinder, whatever, and basically matches up into this album, and everything is done tastefully. Just everything's great. There's really not a bad song here. It's just solid from start to finish. As far as favorite songs, I would say almost the entire album basically is a favorite song. I mean, there's really not a bad song here. Everything stands out in its own way. There's just... It's just fucking great. I mean, I really love the title track. I really love Dance of Ixtab. I love Eleanor Rigor Mortis. I love, of course, Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited. I do love, of course, the song Wake Up and Smell the Carcass / Kavit Emptor, which definitely has one of the most hookiest sort of guitar leads. Everything's just great about that track. And of course, ending with definitely the more slower and more melodic song on the entire album, that being the Sky's Remorseless Swing. Just great. There's just not a bad song here. It's a strong album from start to finish. It's solid. So there we go. There's my overall honest praise for at least Torn Arteries from Carcass. And since I've got written down, my score for the album is basically a 9.65 out of 10. I mean, yes, you probably were expecting me to probably just give it a straight up 10 out of 10, but I think, again, to kind of say that this is probably their greatest work, it might be a stretch, but this still is a hell of an album from these guys. It definitely shows that they still have plenty of gasoline in the tank. They still can write. They still can definitely come up with a lot of still straight up just kick-ass songs that they still can come up with them. And again, this definitely is a testament to that. They really showcase some really good stuff on this album. At times, I might say I maybe like this one more than Surgical Steel. I think this is definitely a worthy addition in the Carcass catalog. So I really enjoy this album. So with that, I know all of you have probably heard this album. So if you have any sort of thoughts, whether they be at least maybe positive or negative, you can at least post them in the comments section below. But if you haven't heard this album, and you might have not been following Carcass for a long time, if you definitely dig albums like Heartwork and maybe Swan Song, I can't imagine you not liking Torn Arteries. This is a great album. So I definitely recommend it. So there we go. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Harry Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.